Hi everyone, my name is Victoria and welcome to the PNC podcast. I have with me Alex.
Hi.
And Garvey.
Hello.
It's my absolute pleasure to introduce you to our astrophysicist, Kirsten Banks. Thank you so much for joining us today. How has your morning been?
Thanks for having me. My morning's been pretty good. Currently adjusting back to the Sydney time zone because I just spent a week in Canada where I got to see the Northern Lights, which is so incredibly cool.
Let's start at the beginning. Tell us about where you grew up.
Okay, so I grew up here in Sydney on Gadigal land and Guringai country. My family is from Condobolin, so out in Wiradjuri country, so I'm a Wiradjuri woman, but I did grow up here on the coast. I went to high school and studied physics and maths, which then took me to study astronomy at university. So I've always been a coastal kid, but definitely love going back on country in Wiradjuri country too.
What was your first ever job? Please tell us about it.
Oh, my first ever official job, other than working for my parents or tutoring saxophone and clarinet, my first official job was working as a tour guide at Sydney Observatory. So I would go in and go with big groups of people to talk about space and astronomy, look through telescopes, see things like Saturn, the moon, incredible other space objects as well. And I loved doing that. I worked there for, I think, five 5 years in the end. It was good fun.
That's really cool. Who inspired you to take this career path?
Oh, well, it's funny because when I was in school, when I was about your age, I used to hate public speaking. I was not confident at all. But then I went with a friend to go to the Sydney Observatory. And while I was there, I was chatting with one of the tour guides on my tour. And he said, "Oh, wow, you know astronomy really well. You should apply for a job here." And so I did, because I'm all about taking on opportunities, even though it terrified me at the time. I applied for the job, and a few months later, I got in and I found out that I love talking about space with people.
You are very big on Instagram with 154,000 followers. Please tell us how you developed such a strong fan base.
Well, yes, well, it's been really cool to have that many people wanting to learn about space and astronomy. But what I've been doing is I've been making fun educational videos about space and astronomy, and people seem to really enjoy that. And so that's how I've started to grow this big community, which I hope grows even further.
How long does it take for you to make your videos?
Oh, good question. It really depends on the video. If it's a really short and easy one where I know what the content is about, like for example, there's one video I have where I talk about how thin the rings of Saturn are. So they're really big, they stretch right around the entire planet, but they're very, very thin in comparison. So if you were to squish them down so that the thickness is just the thickness of a piece of paper, they would stretch right across from Perth to Sydney. So that's a really cool fun fact. It's one of my favorite ones. But something like that would take maybe a couple of hours. But let's say there was some brand new science that came out and I had to read 1 to 3 different research papers to get all of the information to then turn it into a short little video. That could take a couple of days to try and first understand what the new science is, because even though I'm a scientist, it still takes a lot to read through an entire research paper and understand every single little bit, especially if it's outside my research area in particular, and then try and translate that into ways that everyone can understand it and into a fun and engaging and visual way as well.
How do you come up with engaging content on a daily basis?
So a lot of my content these days comes from the questions that people leave. Otherwise, it'd be about any sort of news at the moment within science and trying to share that brand new science that's happening so that everyone can enjoy the exploration of science and research.
What primary and high school did you attend, and what were your favorite subjects?
So I went to a primary school and high school that were right next to each other, so literally neighbors. So I went to Mimosa Primary School and then followed by Davidson High School. And I definitely really enjoyed science and maths, but I also did a little bit of music as well. So I played saxophone during primary school and high school, and I really enjoyed being creative with the saxophone, as well as doing lots of challenges in physics and maths.
You still know how to play saxophone?
So I haven't played saxophone in a few years now. My priorities changed from playing music to understanding the universe and making videos about space and astronomy. But I think I've played for about 13 years. If I put it together, I might be able to get a few notes out.
What was the best advice you've ever received and how has it guided you throughout your journey?
Oh, the best advice I've ever received was actually on my first day of high school, so year 7. go into from Mimosa to Davidson High School. And the principal at the time, he had said to us that high school is like a long hallway of doors where each door is a different opportunity. And we should make the decision to open those doors and go through them and take on opportunities. So that's really been a big thing that's driven my life and my journey, is taking opportunities like the opportunity to work at Sydney Observatory, taking on opportunities to be on TV with people that I really admire and enjoy, and do all sorts of fun things. So taking opportunities is definitely that big piece of advice that's helped me.
Why did you decide to become an astrophysicist?
So I really enjoyed physics and maths and the universe. But in year 9 or year 10, my science teachers took my entire year group on an excursion to see a documentary about the Hubble Space Telescope. And seeing that documentary made me realize, wow, space is really cool. I want to study it. But then at one point, I wanted to be an aerospace engineer. But when I got to university, or I saw the university catalogs of the different degrees, I saw that the aerospace engineering degree, you didn't start doing any specific aerospace engineering subjects until the 4th year of the degree. And I'm like, I want to do it from day one. So that's why I chose physics instead, because at least I'd be learning physics from day one.
If you didn't get the chance to become an astrophysicist, what career would you have chosen instead?
Right. So when I was younger, I thought I could be a professional saxophonist when I was playing saxophone. I also liked playing netball, and I umpired netball as well. So I thought at one point, oh, I can be a professional netball umpire like the ones on TV. But the great thing about learning about all sorts of different things is that you can see yourself in any sort of career. So your imagination can take you pretty much anywhere. Like I didn't think that I would have a career talking about space and science on social media and TV, but I do. And that's pretty cool.
What is your favorite thing about being an astrophysicist, and how challenging is it?
Okay, so my favorite thing about being an astrophysicist is how challenging it is, because I like solving problems and trying to figure out what's going on in the universe, but it is very challenging at times. So I've just spent 4 years doing a PhD, almost Dr. Kirsten Banks, which is very exciting. But those 4 years were definitely very, very challenging, very, very tough. I did my PhD during the pandemic, so most of my PhD was done at home alone. So that was definitely a challenge as well. But by having great communities around you, other PhD students, the faculty, I got through and made it to the end.
What was the most interesting fact you learnt about space?
Gosh, there are so many interesting facts about space, but I think one that I like because it incorporates my love of space, but also my love of pasta, is that neutron stars, they are what's left over after massive stars die. If they're not so massive, they turn into black holes, but if they're not quite as massive, they turn into neutron stars. And the nucleons, so like the protons and neutrons that make up neutron stars, their shapes can be described with pasta shapes. So in the top layer, nucleons are kind of gnocchi shaped, so round. When you get deeper into the neutron star, the pressure gets bigger and bigger. And so they get stretched out into long pieces of spaghetti, and they get stretched into sheets of lasagna. And that's how we describe the shape of nucleons and neutrons.
That's really cool, and definitely love.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us?
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, I know that I want to be like somewhere like in either space or engineering.
Awesome.
Pretty much same as Gauravi, but maybe also including radiology or digital media.
I
Ooh.
want to be a marine biologist or a digital like media thing.
That's awesome. And the great thing about that is you can do both. Like I'm an astrophysicist and a digital content creator as well. So there are so many jobs out there that don't even exist now that you could do in the future, which is super exciting for you guys.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, Kirsten.
PNC podcast out.